People can be really mean in this life. In this story, a billionaire pretends to be a church usher to test gold digger girlfriend, and this happened. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from, and do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button. The sun was just beginning to rise over Abuja, casting a golden hue on the glass towers and busy streets below. Richard sat at the edge of his king-sized bed, staring at his reflection in the massive floor-to-ceiling window. The city adored him, or rather, they adored his money. At 35, he was a billionaire with sprawling estates, luxury cars, and a bank account that could make a small nation blush. But behind the polished exterior was a man burdened by one simple, aching truth. He didn't know if anyone would ever love him for who he truly was. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Daniel, his oldest friend, and the only person he trusted without question. "You sound tired," Daniel said when Richard picked up. "I am," Richard replied with a sigh. "I'm tired of the same thing over and over. Every woman I meet, every relationship I start, it's all built on the same foundation, my money. They don't even hide it anymore." Daniel was silent for a moment before asking, "So what are you going to do about it?" That question had been circling in Richard's mind for months, but now he finally had an answer. "I'm going to disappear," he said. "Not physically, but financially. No cars, no tailored suits, no expensive watches. I'll take a simple job in a place where no one will connect me to my wealth. I need to know if there's a woman out there who would love me without a kobo to my name." Daniel laughed. "That sounds like a movie. Where exactly do you plan to do this?" Richard smiled faintly. "The church." It wasn't as random as it sounded. Richard was a member of one of the largest churches in Abuja, a place filled with people from all walks of life. He had always attended discreetly, slipping into a back seat with bodyguards nearby. But now he would step into a role no one would suspect, a humble church usher. The following Sunday, Richard's plan began to take shape. Gone was the sleek black Bentley that usually delivered him to the church's gates. Instead, he took a taxi, dressed in a plain white shirt, black trousers, and an inexpensive tie. The usher's coordinator, a cheerful man named Samuel, welcomed him warmly. "You're new here, right? We could always use more hands." "Yes," Richard replied, forcing a smile. "I just want to serve in any way I can." By the next week, he was officially part of the ushering team. He held doors open, guided newcomers to their seats, and handed out hymn books. No one looked at him twice. To them, he was just another volunteer, not the billionaire whose name appeared on Forbes' annual list. Oddly, Richard found a certain peace in the anonymity. He didn't have to impress anyone, didn't have to carry the weight of expectations. Still, his purpose remained clear. He was here to observe, to see if sincerity existed in a world where status often spoke louder than character. One evening, as he and Daniel sat in a quiet cafe, Richard explained how it felt. "It's strange," he said, stirring his tea. "When no one knows who you are, they treat you differently. I'm invisible to some, but others, they're kind, but it's polite kindness, not interest. I can already tell who wouldn't give me a second glance outside these walls." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "So what's next?" Richard's eyes darkened with determination. "I keep going. I'll serve for as long as it takes. If there's even one person who looks past this shirt and tie and sees me, not what I own, then it'll all be worth it." What Richard didn't know was that his quiet little experiment would lead to the most painful truth of his life, one he wasn't ready to face. Clare loved the Abuja lifestyle. Champagne brunches, rooftop dinners, and weekend getaways to Dubai. She had met Richard 6 months ago at a charity gala, and from that moment, her life had been one long highlight reel. To her, Richard was the perfect man, charming, handsome, and above all, wealthy. That's why the sight that greeted her one Sunday morning felt like a slap to the face. She had arrived fashionably late to church, gliding in with a designer handbag and a smile that drew glances. But as she stepped through the main entrance, her eyes froze on the man standing near the door, holding it open for worshipers. It was Richard. Except he didn't look like Richard. Gone were the tailored suits and gold wristwatch. In their place was a plain white shirt, neatly pressed but cheap-looking, paired with simple black trousers. He had a welcoming smile for the congregation, greeting each person with a polite "good morning" as he handed out hymn books. Claire blinked, certain she was imagining things. She walked straight to him. "What are you doing here?" she hissed under her breath. "I'm ushering," Richard replied calmly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her eyes narrowed. "Ushering? Why? Where's your driver? Your car? What is going on?" "I just wanted to try something different," he said, avoiding her sharp gaze. "Serve in the church. Give back." Claire's disbelief was quickly turning into embarrassment. People were walking past, some smiling at her, others glancing curiously. She forced a laugh, pretending it was all a misunderstanding. "Right. Well, I'll see you inside." She found a seat near the front, but the entire service was a blur. Her mind kept circling the same thoughts. Why would Richard do something so beneath him? An usher? That was a role for young students or retirees, not a man of his status. After church, she waited for him outside. He approached, still smiling, still wearing that simple shirt and tie. "Claire, you didn't enjoy the service?" he asked gently. "I couldn't focus," she said, crossing her arms. "Richard, this is ridiculous. You're a billionaire. You don't need to be standing at the door handing out books. Do you know how people will talk?" He looked at her carefully. "Is that what you care about? What people will say?" "I care about reality," she shot back. "You're not this. You're supposed to be in boardrooms, not on usher duty. If this is some kind of hobby, fine, but don't expect me to sit here and pretend it's normal." Richard felt the weight of her words. This was exactly why he had started the experiment. Still, hearing it from Claire stung more than he expected. "Maybe I just want to see who I am without all the trappings," he said quietly. She shook her head, her tone laced with frustration. "Well, figure that out on your own. Call me when you're done with whatever this is." She walked away without another glance, her heels clicking against the pavement, each step echoing in Richard's chest like a closing door. That night, her silence was deafening. No calls, no messages. For the first time in months, Richard realized he might be losing her. Not because of something he had done wrong, but because of what he had stripped away. And deep down, he suspected this was only the beginning. The next few weeks were a quiet unraveling. Claire's absence was now permanent. No more brunch dates, no late-night calls, no invitations to lavish events. She had vanished from his life without a formal goodbye, though Richard suspected she considered his usher phase beneath her dignity. He kept showing up to church anyway, blending into the sea of volunteers in plain white shirts and black trousers, forcing himself to smile as he guided worshipers to their seats. His purpose hadn't changed. If Claire couldn't stand by him now, maybe someone else could. He began noticing the women who attended regularly, some elegant and reserved, others bright and full of laughter. He made a conscious effort to talk to them, not in a romantic way, but to test the waters, to see if any showed genuine interest in him as the man they saw, not the man he used to project. It didn't take long for the pattern to emerge. The polite conversations always ended quickly. The warm smiles were fleeting. Most women nodded and moved on, their attention drifting to better-dressed men in the congregation. A few seemed friendly at first, but when they realized he didn't have a car waiting outside or a wristwatch worth more than their salary, their tone shifted. He could see it in their eyes, the quiet dismissal, the unspoken judgment. One Sunday, after service, A young lady named Ruth stayed back to chat with him. She had a kind face and an easy laugh. Richard thought, maybe, just maybe. But within minutes, her questions turned sharply practical. "So, what do you do apart from ushering?" she asked. "I'm between things right now," Richard replied, keeping his cover. "Oh." The brightness in her expression faded, replaced by polite distance. She excused herself soon after, leaving Richard standing alone by the door. That moment stayed with him. By the fourth week, the truth had sunk deep into his bones. In this role, in this humble disguise, he was invisible in the way that mattered most. No one leaned in to know his heart. No one asked about his dreams. Without the sheen of wealth, he was just another man holding a door open. And for most, that wasn't enough. One late Sunday afternoon, he sat on the steps outside the church after everyone had left. The sun was dipping below the Abuja skyline, casting long shadows across the compound. Daniel walked up, hands in his pockets. "You look like you've been run over by reality," Daniel said gently. Richard gave a hollow laugh. "I thought I'd find at least one person who could see me, just one. But it turns out, without the cars, the suits, the expensive everything, I'm invisible." "Maybe they just don't know you well enough yet," Daniel offered. "No," Richard said, shaking his head. "It's not about knowing me. It's about interest. You can't get to know someone you don't even notice. And that's the point. Without the image, no one notices." Silence settled between them. A light breeze rustled the trees, carrying faint echoes of the choir's earlier hymns. "So, what now?" Daniel finally asked. Richard looked out at the street, where taxis and KK riders zipped by, their horns blending into the city soundtrack. "Now? I end the experiment. I've seen what I needed to see. It hurts, but at least I know the truth." Daniel put a hand on his shoulder. "And Claire?" Richard's expression hardened slightly, though there was no anger, only a quiet resignation. "Claire made her choice. She wanted the billionaire, not the man. I can't blame her for that, but I can't be with someone who only values the version of me with a price tag." As the last light of day faded, Richard rose to his feet. He felt heavier, but strangely lighter too, as if the weight of an illusion had finally been set down. The dream of finding love untouched by status had been shattered, but in its place was a clearer, colder understanding of the world he lived in. He walked away from the church that evening without looking back, his footsteps echoing on the pavement. For now, his heart was bruised, maybe even broken. But deep down, he knew one thing with certainty: the search for genuine love was far from over.